So the Egyptians made the Israelites and their slaves treated them horribly. Pharaoh even gave an order to have every newborn son of the Israelites killed by drowning them in the Nile River. One Hebrew family put their baby son in a basket and floated him down the Nile in hopes of saving his life. Pharaoh's daughter discovered this baby crying in the basket and felt sorry for him. Moses' sister, who followed the basket from a distance, offered to help Pharaoh's daughter find a mother to nurse the baby. Pharaoh's daughter agreed, but she didn't know that she was hiring Moses' own mother to take care of him. The princess took the baby home to raise him in the king's palace and named him Moses, which means to draw out. Many years later, after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them being forced to work as slaves. One day, while Moses was tending sheep, he noticed a bush that was on fire, but it wasn't burning up. He said to himself, "That's amazing. I've got to go over and see this." God called out to him from the bush, "Moses, Moses." "Yes, here I am," Moses answered. "Don't come any closer," God told him. "Take off your sandals because you are standing on holy ground." Moses hid his face in his hands because he was afraid to look at God. Then Moses asked, "Who should I tell them has sent me?" God replied, "I am who I am. Tell that I am has sent you, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is my name for every generation." Then Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the God of Israel says. Let my people go."
2, 1, action.
The Passover. Moses and his brother Aaron met with Pharaoh and pleaded with him that the Israelites leave Egypt for just 3 days to worship God. "If you choose not to do this, God will punish the Egyptians severely." But Pharaoh was stubborn and would not listen. He said, "Who is this God, and that I should listen to him? I don't know your God, and I am not letting you leave. You are just trying to create a distraction. Now get back to work." After their meeting with Pharaoh, things got worse for the Israelites. Pharaoh forced them to work faster and longer hours. Cruel slave masters pushed them harder and harder as they worked in the fields and made bricks from mud and straw. So God sent a series of horrible plagues on the Egyptians in their land, but these plagues did not have any effect on the Israelites. The first plague turned the Nile River into blood. All the fish died, and the water smelled terrible and was undrinkable. The second plague brought a mob of frogs that covered the entire country. These frogs were everywhere, in their bedrooms, kitchens, and even in their pots and pans. The third and fourth plagues brought gnats and flies. They covered all the people and animals. Pharaoh's magicians tried to copy each of these plagues, but couldn't create gnats. They cried to Pharaoh, "God must be doing this to us." After each of the plagues, Moses returned to Pharaoh and asked him to let the Israelites go so they could worship God. But Pharaoh was stubborn and would not listen. The fifth plague brought severe disease to Egypt's livestock, but none of the Israelites' cattle became sick. The sixth plague caused the Egyptians to break out with horrible sores all over their bodies so bad they couldn't sit or lay down. Pharaoh would say, "Enough. If you stop the plagues, I will let you leave." But after God stopped the plagues, Pharaoh still would not let them go. God had made Pharaoh even more stubborn, and he refused to listen. The seventh and eighth plagues brought hail and locusts that destroyed every tree and plant in the land. The locusts swept down and ate everything that wasn't wiped out by the hail. The ninth plague brought complete darkness over the land for 3 days. No one could see anything but the Israelites who still had light in their homes. Despite all these horrific events, Pharaoh still not let the Israelites leave. God told Moses, "Pharaoh's stubbornness will let me give the opportunity to even do greater miracles in Egypt."
Moses warned Pharaoh about this final plague, saying, "This is what God says to you. About midnight I will pass through Egypt. Every firstborn son will die, rich or poor, from Pharaoh's son on down. And the Egyptians will weep loudly, but the Israelites will not be touched. Then you will beg the people of Israel to leave." As Moses left his meeting with Pharaoh, he burned with anger. In spite of this warning, Pharaoh still refused to let him go. Then Moses gave the Israelites instructions from God on how they could be saved from this plague. He told the people each family is to select a sacrifice, a year-old male lamb that is pure and without any defects, and be careful not to break any of its bones. Then take the blood from this sacrifice and put it on the doorframes of your home. This will be a sign for God to pass over your home and spare of your firstborn. So the people of Israel did exactly what God told them to do. At midnight, God came through Egypt and took the life of every firstborn son. But he passed over the homes that had blood on their doorframes. All of Egypt woke during the night because of the loud weeping. Someone had died in nearly every Egyptian home, including Pharaoh's own son. The Egyptians begged the Israelites to leave right away. That night, the Israelites, now numbering over 2 million, set out to return to their promised land of Canaan. God guided them through the wilderness with a pillar of clouds during the day and a pillar of fire at night. Meanwhile, Pharaoh changed his mind again and sent his armies after the Israelites to catch them. When the people of Israel arrived at the bank of a White Sea, they saw Pharaoh and his armies approaching from a distance and beginning to panic. They turned against Moses, complaining, "Our slavery back in Egypt was better than dying out here in the wilderness." But Moses told the people, "Don't be afraid. God will rescue you today. He will fight for you." Then God told Moses to stretch out his hand over the sea. As he did this, God brought a huge wind that opened up a dry path for them to walk across. Pharaoh and his armies began to follow behind the Israelites. God told Moses to stretch out his hand again. This brought another huge wind that blew the sea back over. Pharaoh and his armies completely destroyed them. The people of Israel were in awe of God's amazing power. They put their trust in God and also in his servant Moses. They sang songs, danced, and celebrated how God had saved them.
The laws and the commands. Israelites were complaining about food and water. God provided birds, bread, and water that comes from a rock. After they eat, God tells Moses to tell his people to obey him, and he will keep rescuing them. Moses gathers the people, and God tells them the 10 Commandments. While away on the mountain with God for 40 days and 40 nights, his people asked his brother Aaron where he was, and Aaron made a golden calf for them to worship. God told the people not to worship any other gods, so he got angry when they worshiped the golden calf. God was about to wipe out the people and start over, but Moses begged him not to. God told Moses that whoever sinned will be punished. God gave them details about how to obey him and enjoy his blessings.
God had just given the people of Israel specific instructions about how to live in his ways and remain close to him in a covenant relationship. During one of Moses' trips to the mountain, God also gave him a specific instruction about how to build a holy tent called the tabernacle. God said, "Build a special place for me to live among the people I love." So Moses gathered the very best craftsmen and workers, and he began building the tabernacle in the center of their camp.
The tent was divided into 2 rooms. The large outer room was called the holy place. Inside the room there was a stand that held 7 oil lamps called a menorah. These lamps burned day and night and symbolized God's constant protection and watch over his people. Next to this was a table with 12 loaves of bread on it, reminding them that God would always provide for their needs. Also in the holy place there was a gold altar where incense was burned. Incense reminded them of God's nearness and was also a symbol of their prayers rising to God.
The small inner room was called the Holy of Holies. A thick curtain hung from the ceiling of the tent all the way down to the floor, separating it from the holy place. This room contained a special wooden chest called the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark contained the stone tablets that God wrote and gave to Moses. On the top of the Ark was a gold covered with mercy seat where the presence of God would come.
When the Israelites finished building the tabernacle, God showed his presence was there by covering the top of it with a cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night.
Whenever the cloud or fire would move, they would pack up camp and follow it. God told the people of Israel, "When you realize you have sinned, you must confess it and bring an offering to me. Then I will remove your sins and forgive you." Because his love for the Israelites, God provided a way for them to substitute life of an animal that was pure without defects. In a place of their own, a life for a life. So every day, people would bring his sacrifices to God in the courtyard of the tabernacle. This system of sacrifice continued for hundreds of years, but these sacrifices were only a symbol of what was to come. God was preparing a final sacrifice that would pay for the world's sins once and for all. At this time, the Israelites organized themselves into 12 groups called tribes, according to which the 12 sons of Israel, Jacob, they descended from. Moses' brother Aaron was the oldest of the descendants of Levi, Israel's firstborn son. God chose Aaron and his sons to represent the people as priests. They had the special job of bringing the people's offering to God. The priests were also the only ones allowed inside the tabernacle. If anyone else tries to come near God's presence, they would die. But no one was allowed to go inside the Holy of Holies except for the high priest, Aaron, on a special day called the Day of Atonement. God said to Moses, "In addition to the weekly Sabbath, you should set aside time for festivals where everyone comes together to worship, celebrate, and rest." So the Israelites held several festivals each year. Some lasted for weeks. The special Day of Atonement occurred during one of their fall festivals. God said, "This will be a special day where you will all be made right with me. Today you will find forgiveness and cleansing from all your sins." Then God told Aaron, the high priest, what he might do on the Day of Atonement. He said, "You must follow all my instructions completely, or you will die. Make sure you are completely clean without sin on the inside and out. Then wear the special clothes made for this occasion." God went on to describe the special underclothing and elaborate robe that Aaron should wear. God continued, "Sacrifice a young bull as payment for your sins and the sins of your family. Then dip your finger in blood from this bull and sprinkle it on the cover of the ark. And then sprinkle it 7 times on the front of the ark. Then find 2 spotless goats and sacrifice them as a substitute for the sins of all the Israelites. Take its blood and sprinkle it over the cover in front of ark as you did with the bull's blood. I will accept this and forgive all the sins and rebellion of people. Remember, blood represents life. In this blood you will find life and an atonement for your sins." After this, Aaron was to bring in the other goat that was still alive, called the scapegoat, also called the Azazel, which means to take away. And God told him, "Lay both of your hands on its head and confess all of the people's sins, putting them on the head of the goat. Then lead this goat far away into the wilderness. The people's sins will be taken away with it, never to be seen again." Aaron and the people of Israel followed God's instructions carefully. Because of this, the people were made right with God once again and given atonement for their sins. This was a holy day that people of Israel continue to celebrate year after year.
Done.